Thank you very much. And no, absolutely, that was music to my ears. Not least of which because I live in Scotland and I always love to hear what we're doing here and how good we are. So that's great. But also because you're absolutely right, it completely echoed our own thoughts about the importance of data and the importance of choice as well in terms of kind of putting in some of these standards. So look, I'm delighted to be here today and to have heard all of the stories from across the world, which has been really inspiring, actually. And it's been interesting to see the questions and input on some of the chat in terms of needing to ensure this is inclusive for everybody and across all countries. You know, with our Microsoft mission statement of empowering every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more, this fits very much with our way of thinking. So yes, being from Microsoft, my focus is on technology, but actually our focus is on technology and actually how it can help people in society and improve lives. And hopefully, as you know, you'll get to see how we believe that tech can kind of really support this. So my role, I'm Director of Local and Regional Government for the UK for Microsoft. That covers kind of housing associations and local authorities in the context of what we're talking about. And so my customers really cover the heart of the local response to supporting their citizens. Now, never has that been more so than in the response to COVID-19. And there are many lessons I think that we can learn from COVID about kind of what is important in these settings. I'll come on to that a bit more later. So we see the ongoing support and indeed transformation of kind of end-to-end healthcare and social care, particularly in the UK, and I apologise to those outside of the UK because that's really my perspective. But we see that as absolutely vital, and also a place-based approach to kind of well-being and holistic well-being as well. So we think it's important to look at everything to do with healthy aging, not just how do we support people effectively when there's an issue, but how do we support healthy eating and healthy exercise? What about healthy mental health as we all age? What about the epidemic of loneliness in our older population? And what about actually just being able to live a full and rich life where we can continue to contribute to society as we age, rather than kind of being seen as a burden or somehow frail and needing to be looked after? You know, and kind of age to some degree is in the eye of the beholder. My children think I'm really old. I disagree. But actually, I would like to think as I continue to age, I will still have a lot to be able to give society. And I'm sure you'll kind of feel that way as well. So I think that, you know, we believe that technology can be an important enabler for the solutions to some of these problems. And that's why we are so excited by a discussion around creating standards for future housing that supports a multi-generational community, and to have tech standards be part of that conversation. So where do we see the opportunity for tech in a multi-generational housing setting? Well, actually really echoing again what Dr. Crooks was saying just before, you know, it's about actually allowing us to manage our own care and our own health. And then when we can't, to be able to provide quick and proactive intervention early so that we don't end up having to go outside of our home setting unnecessarily. So that's things like wearable tech. I mean, we are all used to things like Fitbits and Apple Watches and Android watches to be able to track that data. And there are some specific kind of care tech and care data that allows us to be able to look at some of these things. And again, that comes back to how can we collect all of the relevant data to really be able to help people. Tracking is another element, and something that we're looking at in terms of, you know, how can we support people with kind of certainly early stage dementia to continue to live in the community, but help them safely, to help to track them safely if they were to leave their home and if there happened to be an issue, and alert the right people. Within a housing setting, sensors are another kind of really important opportunity where technology can help, you know, in terms of movement sensors, temperature sensors, you know, using actually almost the infrastructure of the house to be able to help to monitor somebody who might need additional care, and then provide real-time alerting. And actually, just the kind of opportunity that now video calls have become kind of more widely used. to provide support for loneliness, to provide remote physio appointments. I mean, actually, the applications are fairly endless in that term once people start to get used to that method of communication and to that use. But ultimately, the most important thing is that it's integrated with lots of different types of services to be able to utilize and kind of catch the same data. I guess in terms of learnings from COVID, what we've seen with working with our customers, I think, fundamentally, how do you get support to the people who need it? We've seen lots of local authorities standing up some great solutions, individual solutions about how to make sure that they can get support to those who are being shielded. How do you then make that support safe and secure so that people are protected when they're getting it, so that they can feel, again, we've talked a lot today about trust. There has to be trust in the technology, so make sure that you feel the trust in the individuals who might helping you, particularly in a community-based scenario. And how do you make sure that that data, that we are using the richness of that data to provide information, and that there is a ubiquitous service wherever you are? So in the UK, regardless of what council or health board you are in, regardless of what end devices that board or council has chosen to use, how can you make sure that you're provided with the same level of service and the same support network, regardless of where you are in the country? So I talked a little bit about some of the considerations that we need to think about, and there's obvious ones when it comes to technology, privacy, security, making sure that we can trust, making sure that we're keeping people safe while we are trying to help them. And we've seen some of those concerns around the discussions around the track and trace application that has been trying to launch within the UK for COVID. There's also the important consideration of choice, and that people are self-funders in many areas, that people have, there's increasing consumerization. So people have a choice of the technology they decide to use to support them. But actually, I think take away the technology side, and one of the most important things, and it's just been so good to hear it across all the presentations, is that we shouldn't be infantilizing the older generation. Actually, we need to be able to support people when they need support, or with particular things that they can't get done. But actually, how can we allow them to contribute in a valuable way to the community? Actually, that's the true power of a multi-generational setting, where you can get support to people when they need it, but also perhaps link people up in the community in some way to say, hey, look, thank you for helping me with my garden, which I struggle with now, but I'd love to come and talk to your children about what life was like back in the 50s for their school project. And actually, I could help you with some childcare in the evenings. Older people have a huge amount still to give to society, and they want to give that to society. And it's so important that we just don't see people as becoming a burden or freight. So very quickly, to finish up in terms of the importance of standards, I talked about the rise of consumerization. I've talked about the fact that we then need that standards to allow interoperability of services and data to work, and that's networking standards. That could be security, connectivity, and an open data platform, and encouraging manufacturers to add care applications to their platforms. When we're talking about housing, it becomes even more important, because housing should be built to last. So you don't want to be in a position where you're rebuilding houses to account for technology change. So we need bricks and mortar with connectivity built in, a standardized backbone that supports a multitude of use cases, from the single professional who works from home to the family with young children, to anybody who requires additional care and support. We need a standard that can be leveraged for whatever that requirement is, and that's truly multi-generational. So it's been really exciting to be part of the conversation today. I love the passion I've heard in the presentations, and I'd really love Microsoft to continue to be a part of this conversation for something that I genuinely think could be a game changer for a healthier and happier society.
Thank you very much, Faith. That is great to hear your commitment to the future. That is all our futures, let's face it. A couple of quick comments. We're going to move straight into the next session, and hopefully the two of you will be there to answer questions once we get to the Q&A part. But two things. One, I'm seeing some concerns that this is UK specific. The reality is everything that Faith just spoke about could apply to Microsoft anywhere in the world. It could be argued that the developing world has less maturity when it comes to the likes of broadband. So there are certain things we start thinking about AI. It's premature, but it doesn't matter. Of course, it matters. But what is equally important is that we lay the foundations where it counts. So where you can actually make a difference if the technology exists, to then spread and share amongst the world. And this is really part of why I've taken an interest in this ISO standard, because it is about equality. It is about creating where the money is, new opportunity, and then sharing the knowledge, sharing. And obviously, we can't cover every market around the world. We do not have 3 weeks to do this. But in terms of the emphasis, it is on what is possible. That's what we're about here today, what is possible. Somebody else made a comment in regard to the fact that because this market is not mature enough yet, maybe it's too early for standards. The point that it's worth making here is this is not a let's finish this event today and then we'll create a nice standard. It is a process, as I said earlier on, of consultation. It is about creating consensus, and that's a 3-year project. So what's going to happen is we are going to gather the knowledge that we've brought together today. We are going to work with many of the people who are participating to refine the proposition, which will be going to an ISO technical committee in September. Once approved, it's then a 3-year process. So it's open innovation we're talking about here. We're not closing anything. You've got to start somewhere, so you've got to start listening. And that's what I think is most exciting about this. We're going to move to assistive technology. That's really what Faye was talking about. But one of the points that is, pretty essential here is when we talk about inclusion and we're talking about older adults and we're saying, well, they're not all the same. We know this. Everyone is different. But equally, it's not just about older people. It's about inclusion with a capital I.